Very good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. And my name is Varun Pawar. And welcome back to my channel that talks about the business analysis. So, so today we'll talk about the planned stakeholder engagement. That is again the part of BAPM, that is business analysis, planning, and the monitoring. This is the second activity. Before proceeding forward, please remember that the slides or the content that I am providing you, this is a short abstract information from the BABOK. In order to go through or deep dive into that information, you have to go through the BABOK and then you can relate information that I am presenting here. This is just for your information so that you understand the concept and then you can go back in BABOK and read it fully. So here today we are talking about stakeholder engagement, plan stakeholder engagement approach. So this is second activity. So first try to understand this slide. This slide talks about the different stakeholders. Uh, so we have tester, sponsor, domain subject matter expert, implementation subject matter expert, suppliers, help desk, support team, vendors, so project manager. So lot of stakeholders are there. So assume this way, if you try to create a common template and try to flow that information to all the stakeholders, will that be relevant for those stakeholders? Obviously, that would not be relevant. Obviously, for the project manager, the information related to the budget, schedule, and scope is of utmost importance. Whether for the tester, the test cases are of important information. For implementation subject matter expert, that would be something related to the implementation knowledge area. So every stakeholder have their own specific information that they consume to plan, do, check, and act. So now, based on those stakeholders, we try to group them together and try to create as a business analyst, I'm saying, we try to group the stakeholders together and try to create a common template. Now assume this way that we have end user. So in your application, if there is end user, so end users might be having different roles, right? Some might be the admin role, someone could be the content creator role. So based on those, you try to group the users and then create a common template so that you no need to create the same information and again for the different user base. So these are the, as per the BABOK, we have these stakeholders, and the business analyst try to understand all those stakeholders and try to create a communication plan for them. So the stakeholder engagement approach talks about all such information that is revolve around the stakeholders. And this is important slide for you from the examination point of view as well. So stakeholders, it's known as stakeholder matrix, and it talks about the influence impact. So if you can see this, this is four quadrant. Uh, it's talk about the influence of the stakeholders, and down you can see the impact on stakeholders. So you know the XY axis. So there we say that influence of stakeholders, and here we say impact on stakeholders. For your ease, I have put some example as well. So suppose we talk about the sponsor. So the sponsor, the influence of the sponsor is very high on the project, but impact on stakeholder, on a sponsor, is very low. Reason being, I'm saying, suppose that the sponsor says something that I want this feature to be part of this application. So the development team or the Scrum team, they try to push their limits to put that extra feature in that application. Yes, that's this, since this the influence of the sponsor was high, so everyone was there to implement that change. But if that from the sponsor point of view, that would could be of a very low importance. But for the development team, that's of a high importance because sponsor has said that thing, right? So this way we have tried to give some examples. For the project manager, the importance influence of the project manager and the impact on the project manager is high, because project manager is the one who manage all the schedule, budget, scope, and if anything happens deviates from the schedule or any of these three constraints, project manager is heavily impacted by that. From the now see this one, we are saying for the help desk, the tester and the users, the impact on these users are very high here, but the influence of these users are very low because these are the end users. They don't have a much say on what we are providing them in an application, right? So what we will build for them, they will simply use them. They will not say, but yes, their feedback is very important because they ultimately are the end users. So their feedback is very important, but their influence on our application is not that big important. So, and and the DSME, domain subject matter expert, their influence is also low, and their impact on this stakeholder is also low because they don't have a much stakes in a project. They are a domain subject matter expert. If suppose one day domain subject matter expert leave the organization, we would be hiring another domain subject matter expert with the same knowledge area. Now assume another other way out, that first try that if the impact influence and the impact is high, then such stakeholders you need to closely work with. If the impact on the stakeholder is high and the influence of stakeholder is very low, in such cases you keep the stakeholders informed. If the influence of the stakeholder is high and the impact on the stakeholder is low, such stakeholders you keep them satisfied. Whatever they ask, you just try to do that. And those stakeholders whose influence and the impact on them is very low, those stakeholders you need to monitor closely. Reason being, there could be a day when the domain subject matter expert has changed and moved to the PM role. So their role has been changed, and now they have a high influence and high impact, right? So so the low where the influence of stakeholder is low and impact on stakeholder is low, we try to monitor those stakeholders closely. So this is very important from your examination point of view. When then and when we say the in this matrix is also known as influence impact matrix. In some way it's project management term, it also named as interest influence matrix or interest impact matrix. So different questions can come up, and then people used to answer those. Now, the objective of the plan stakeholder engagement. Now, I hope you understand the first two slides. From there, you can now relate. The purpose of the plan stakeholder engagement is to plan an approach for establishing and maintaining effective working relationship with the stakeholders, conduct a thorough stakeholder analysis to identify all the involved stakeholders and analyze their characteristics. The degree of complexity can increase disproportionately as the number of stakeholders involved in the business analysis activities increases. So assume this way, as the stakeholders increases, this is very difficult for the business analyst to create a common communication medium, because every stakeholder have their own set of need pertaining to the communication media, communication information, the channels and all. The result of the analysis are then utilized to define the best collaboration and communication approaches for the initiative and to appropriately plan for the stakeholders risk. So plan stakeholder engagement is a kind of analysis we do, and whatever the results comes out, that tells about how best you can collaborate and how best you can develop the communication plans or approach to coordinate with all those stakeholders. Now the same table again here. Uh, plan BA, sorry, just ignore this plan BA approach. That's plan stakeholder engagement. So we are on the second activity here, plan stakeholder engagement, and the need is the input, was the input for the first activity, that is plan business analysis approach, and the output we were getting is business analysis approach. And in the second activity here, the need and the business analysis approach are the two inputs, the major inputs, and the resultant is stakeholder engagement approach. Let's talk about the inputs here. So as I said, the guidelines and tools also act as an input. So first in the major inputs is needs. So what does the needs help in doing plan stakeholder? It actually, based on the need, you try to find out the stakeholders and their needs. Then business analysis approach, the BA approach for the stakeholder analysis, collaboration, communication to maintain the consistency. In guidelines and tools, business analysis performance assessment. So the result of the previous assessment related to the plan stakeholder engagement is used as a, if there is any gap, then you try to implement or remove that, resolve that gap, and try to implement here a improved version of stakeholder engagement. Change strategy. So assessment of the stakeholder impact and devise the effective strategy. So as I said, the example, like if where the impact and influence is low, such stakeholders you monitor closely. And if you identify that in future the this stakeholder might have change with their this stakeholder matrix or interest influence impact matrix, then you devise a different strategy for those. Current state description, it provides you the context within which the works needs to be completed. And the output we are getting is stakeholder engagement approach. And what is it all about? It talks about it tells about the list of stakeholders. It tells about their characteristics, their roles and responsibilities for the change. It also tells about what would be the best collaboration and communication approaches that a business analyst can utilize. Now, the important elements in this activity: perform stakeholder analysis. Obviously, you understand this now. We identify here the stakeholders who will be directly or indirectly impacted by the change and what are their characteristics. Stakeholder analysis is performed repeatedly as a business analysis activities continue. Just to again refer you that if the as per the stakeholder matrix, if the influence impact changes, then you keep monitoring those stakeholders. So here we are saying stakeholder analysis is performed repeatedly. Then you know about this impact influence, interest influence. Stakeholder needs uncovered late will often require a revision to business analysis tasks that are either in progress or are completed. This can result in increased cost and decreased stakeholder satisfaction. Now assume in early stages you are not able to identify the stakeholders, and during the execution phase or once you have started your business analysis activities, and suppose you are mid of those analysis activities, and now you one stakeholders comes suddenly and say, oh, these are my requirement, please do implement those as well. But this stakeholder was not part of your stakeholder list. So that's a problem, and it could increase a risk that their requirements could not be covered. And even if you are try to seek the requirement, elicit and try to incorporate, might not all the requirements will be implemented. So what will ultimately happens, that will leads to stakeholder dissatisfaction. and do have a provision to manage a risk for those stakeholders as well. So this business analysis approach tells about those. Organization chart, business processes, sponsors, contracts, and vendors. Those are the first or foremost initial source of identifying the stakeholders. And this is important from the examination point of view. The second, the other elements in the same category is roles. Business analyst identify stakeholders' roles in order to understand where and how the stakeholders will contribute to the initiative. It is important that the business analyst is aware of the various roles as stakeholder is responsible for within the organization. Then the attitude. Stakeholders' attitude can positively or negatively impact a change. So just try to understand in that way. There are three type of stakeholders as per the attitude. One is having the positive. We generally say them positive stakeholders, negative stakeholders, and the neutral stakeholders. Positive stakeholders are those who takes things positively and try to contribute in a positive way to make things to increase or improve the efficiency of the process. The negative stakeholders are those who always resist for any change, who do not even try, or who always uh, give some not the constructive, rather the destructive remarks. So they hardly bother about the improvement of the product or a process. They keep neglecting those. Neutral stakeholders are those who just plan, do, check, and act, and based on their flow, they try to work. Business analysts identify stakeholders' attitudes in order to fully understand what may impact a stakeholder action and behavior. Business analysts analyze stakeholders' attitudes about, and the during the business analysis activities, there are a lot of terms and terminologies that is directly indirectly impacted by the stakeholders. So what they're understanding, like the business goal, objective of the initiative, and any proposed solution. So how you are looking, how you are seeing that the attitude of the stakeholders toward the business goal, objective of the initiative, and any proposed solution. What their attitude toward business analysis in general, the level of interest in the change, the sponsor, team members and the other stakeholders, and collaboration and team-based approach. Then we have decision-making authority. Business analysts identify the authority level a stakeholder possesses. So it's very important that if upfront you identify the authority level of any stakeholders, it would help you in later stages when there you need to seek any approvals. So understanding authority levels upfront eliminates confusion during the business analysis efforts. Level of power or influence. So you know about this influence impact matrix. So this is again related to that. But assume like if there is a mismatch between the influence required and the amount of influence the stakeholder has or is perceived to have, business analysts develop risk plans, responses, and other strategies that might be needed to obtain the required level of support. Example is, suppose that we are talking about the tester. We have a certain expectation from a tester that his say, like go no go for any release, is of utmost importance. He has devised some test cases. He tested it regressively. He done some smoke test cases, and at the end he say that it's not up to the mark, so I'm not okay to release this feature. So assume that a tester is not doing those activities like regression testing, smoke testing, test cases. What will if the tester is not following this at the end, if he say that okay release it, and at the production these things start breaking, so this means there is a heavy mismatch between the expectation from the tester and what he done. In that case, suppose a risk, there is a risk and business analysts try to develop a risk plans, whether he will coordinate with the development team. Okay, if this happens, would you go for a hot fixes on a production itself, or would you take a revert back plan, or what other plans could be there that business analysts try to discuss and develop. Then define stakeholder collaboration. Business analyst may plan different collaboration approaches for internal and external stakeholders. The objective is to select the approaches that work best to meet the needs of each stakeholder group and ensure that interest and involvement is maintained across the initiative. As you know, remember that in my first slide where I have shown you different stakeholders and their in what type of information they try to seek or work on. So in terms of the collaboration, it's moreover that what type of information is being sent or distributed to those stakeholders. And for the collaboration purpose, the business analyst may devise different approaches based on the type of stakeholder, whether that is internal and external. So when we are talking about the internal stakeholders, that is internal to the system, like project manager, the testers, the support executives. And when we are talking about the externals, so the externals are the third party, the regulators and all. So they might devise a different approaches, collaboration approaches. The objective is to select the approaches that work best to meet the needs of each stakeholder group. So whatever you are devising the plan or the approaches, this is revolve around the stakeholders, and we have to take care that their own objective is being met and they are satisfied. So we talk about business analysts talk about or review this timing and the frequency of the collaboration, the location, available tools such as wikis and online communities, delivery methods such as in person or virtual, preferences of the stakeholders as well. And this is last element, stakeholder communication need. From the collaboration without communication, collaboration cannot happen. So we need to devise a communication plan as well. Communication consideration can be documented in form of stakeholder communication plan. So there is a proper plan being created, a documentation which is known as communication plan, stakeholder communication plan. Business analysts build and review communication plan with the stakeholders to ensure their communication requirements and expectation are met. The business analyst evaluates what needs to be communicated, what is the appropriate delivery method, written or verbal, who the appropriate audience is, when communication should occur, frequency of communication, uh, geographic location of stakeholders who will receive communication, level of detail appropriate for the communication and stakeholder, and level of formality of communication. So this is very important that these points, any point out of these 8 9 points could come in your examination. It could be straightforward. Then who are the stakeholders who participate in this activity? Is the customers, a source of external stakeholder, domain subject matter expert. This stakeholder may help to identify the other stakeholders. End user, it's a source of internal stakeholders. Project manager may be able to identify and recommend stakeholders. Regulator may require that specific stakeholder representative or groups be involved in the business analysis activities. Sponsor may request that specific stakeholders be involved in the business analysis activities. Supplier, a source of external stakeholders. Now I have tried to show or create these two tables here just to give you a clarity about what is customer and what is end user. So for let's say an example, Amazon. For Amazon, who are the end users? So the end users are who are using the Amazon application. So the seller is also using that application uh, to to list down their products. Buyer is using that application to purchase the products. Content creator is using that application to upload the products. Admin is using that application to correct any or to review the products, vendor is using that application for any third party services. And on Amazon, seller, when we are talking about the seller is the end user, so seller, we are saying that seller is an Apple product. So Apple is the organization who is listing their product on Amazon. So from Amazon point of view, that is one of the end user, Apple. And Apple itself, for Apple itself, who is the end user? For the Apple, the end user is the buyer who is using their um, iPhone or their iPad. Now, for the Amazon, who are the customers? So customers are those who are paying for the services to the Amazon. So the sellers are using their platform, paying some money or some amount to the Amazon to list down their Apple products. The third party is different integrated applications or services who use the feed of the Amazon, just like the price checker, who compare the different the same products on different platforms to show the a comparison, price comparison to the user. On Amazon itself, the advertisers are there who try to promote their products or gives ads to Amazon. So these are the customer for the Amazon who pay for the services of Amazon. For Apple, who are the customers? The customers who pay the price to the Apple. Buyer purchase the phones or devices. Advertiser, they used to promote on their Apple devices. The service provider, these are the third party service provider who use the Apple applications or Apple feeds to show, or just like this price comparison here. So there are different other platforms who use the Apple feed, just like the Apple Maps, to uh, you know to show to the different users. So hope you understand the difference between the customer and the end user. Now, the techniques, uh, obviously, as I said, all the techniques I'll cover once we are all done with the business, this complete knowledge areas, and then we'll go through. But you can go through on a high level here. The brainstorming used to produce the stakeholder list and identify stakeholder roles and responsibilities. Business rules analysis used to identify stakeholder who were the source of business rules. Document analysis used to review existing organizational assets that might assist in planning stakeholder engagement. Interviews used to interact with the specific stakeholders to gain more information or knowledge about the stakeholder groups. Lesson learned used to identify an enterprise previous experience, both successes and challenges with planning stakeholder engagement. Mind mapping used to identify potential stakeholders and help understand the relationship between them. Organizational model used to determine if the organizational units or people listed have any unique needs and interests that should be considered. Organizational model describe the roles and the function in the organization and the ways in which stakeholders interact, which can help to identify stakeholders who will be affected by a change. Process modeling used to categorize stakeholders by the system that support their business processes. Risk analysis and management used to identify risk to the initiative resulting from the stakeholder attitude or the ability of key stakeholders to participate in the initiative. Scope modeling used to develop scope models to show stakeholders that fall outside the scope of the solution but still interact with it in some way. Stakeholders list map and personas used to depict the relationship of the stakeholders to the solution and to one another. Survey or questionnaire used to identify shared characteristic of a stakeholder group. Workshop used to interact with groups of stakeholders to gain more information about stakeholder groups. So you can stay on this slide for a couple of minutes, go through this, try to understand what this specific technique is all about and how it's related to the stakeholder engagement approach. So hope you understand what is stakeholder engagement and what are the key terminologies and things you need to remember for your examination. And I'm waiting for, and thanks for your cooperation and your comments. And hope you are subscribing to my channel so that the upcoming videos related to the business analysis will be in your inbox as soon as I'm publishing it here. Thanks again for watching this video or session. I'll keep uploading such videos. We'll try to connect in your to you in the next slides or next sessions. Till then, take care and goodbye.